Good morning, English 11 students. It's hard to believe there's only 6 days left of school. I hope you're doing well. For today, we're finishing up Chapter 6. In this assignment, I've included the audiobook so you can listen to Chapter 6. I know that this guy's voice is kind of boring, but I think that's supposed to be the point. I think he's supposed to be kind of sounding like one of the ranch hands. So I think that's the point of the voice, but I apologize because I know for some of you it's probably hard to listen to, but you can listen to it, or I've included Chapter 6, the PDF, in here. I've also included the study questions. It's a pretty short chapter, so you just read the chapter and then you're going to answer the study questions. Brace yourself, guys. This chapter is kind of sad and maybe a little unexpected. I think you probably have seen this coming but didn't expect it to happen the way it did. But anyways, so here are your questions for number 1. Other than the death of the puppy at the beginning of Chapter 5, what clues have there been throughout the book that led up to Lenny's killing of Curly's wife? So what clues told us that Lenny is going to end up killing Curly's wife? Think back to the incident at Weed. There was a reason why that was one of your study questions early on in the book. Think back to Lenny and his obsession with the girl in Weed's dress and how he just had to touch it. Think about him killing the mice because he rubs them too hard. Those are all clues that Lenny's going to do something that he doesn't mean to do, but something tragic to Curly's wife later. Number 2, as Lenny is hiding in the brush waiting for George, he has 2 hallucinations. Describe the 2 separate hallucinations and explain how each are meaningful to Lenny and the reader. So go back and think about these 2 hallucinations. They should be pretty obvious. It's Giant Bunny and then somebody else who's very important to George or to Lenny. So what are the 2 hallucinations? So Giant Bunny and somebody else who's important to Lenny. Who is that person? Number 3, look carefully at the dialogue between George and Lenny right before the shooting. What's interesting about the way George is talking? So George is talking like they're going to still go to this wonderful place. Is there more to what George is saying? Why is George doing that? What do you think is in George's head when he is talking like the future still exists and that they're still going to live this dream? Number 4, Slim says, "You had a George. I swear you had a." Is it true? Did George have to do what he did in the very end? What would have happened if George had waited another 5 minutes? So if George had not done what he had done and all the other men had found Lenny at the pond, what would have happened 5 minutes later? So think about the hadda part of this. Did George have to? If George didn't, what would have happened 5 minutes later? And then think back to Curly's dog, because Curly's dog has a huge factor in this as well, because he didn't do what should have been done with the dog, if you know what I'm saying. Number 5, at what point did George decide he was going to have to kill Lenny? Yes, if you listened all the way, now you know what happens at the very end of the book. At what point did George decide he's going to have to kill Lenny? Look back over the end of Chapter 5, not Chapter 6, but Chapter 5 for clues. So think back when they found the body originally. Think back when all the men are talking. Think back to her husband that he already has issues with. Lenny already has issues with. What's going to happen? So all of those factors come into play. So what are the clues that tell us that George has to do what he does to Lenny? Number 6, why can't Candy and George still get the dream farm? I'm sorry, I keep saying Curly's dog. It's not Curly's dog, it's Candy's dog. Why can't Candy and George still get the dream farm? Candy thinks that this dream can still happen. Even though Lenny is gone, he and George are still around and he's still got money. So why can't they still get this dream farm? For George, there's a big reason why. It's not him and Candy's dream. It wasn't a dream built for Candy. It was a dream built for a specific purpose. What was that specific purpose? Think back about him being the caretaker for Lenny. What did this dream serve for him and Lenny? And then 7, what's interesting about the very last paragraph in this chapter And then 8, what do you think will happen to George now? This is completely an opinion question. Sometimes I think when you lose your other half, no matter how much of an anchor that other half is, it can change you completely. So for me, George is one of those people that has another half, and they kind of balanced each other out in weird ways, and he's lost kind of that balance. So I wonder if George will not become a little bit more lost just because he doesn't have anyone to care for, and now he doesn't have anyone. So I don't know. It's completely your opinion, but I feel like George is going to be a very lost soul after all of this because he doesn't have that one person that he spent every day kind of worrying about and caring for. This is it, guys. The end of Mice and Men, the last book we're going to read. It's not the last thing you're going to read. You do have one more poem to read for me tomorrow related to Of Mice and Men. But in terms of English 11, you are done with books, guys. So congrats. Nice job this year. It was a pleasure to have you. I wish that I could have had you all year because you guys always seem to make a huge push at the end of the year, I find, and change my opinions of you. So I'm still thinking about maybe doing a Zoom meeting just to say bye to all you guys. But I know that our times don't always mesh up. So if that doesn't happen, it was great, guys. It really was. And I do miss seeing your faces. So I wish we could have physically seen each other before the end of the year. 5 days to go, guys. Take care.